There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned in to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness for Wednesday. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. That's Tim Dennis. Tim.
Yes.
Ancient serpent gods.
Uh-oh.
The alien connection to reptilian dinosaurs. Fascinating, right?
Yes.
This is what our buddy George Norrie has to say. Ancient Serpent Gods is based on one of the most amazing and astounding theories he's ever heard. From Coast to Coast AM. George Norrie, the main host of Coast to Coast AM. I'll be hosting this coming Friday and Saturday night. We've got a great show lined up for you. For more information, times, and stations in your area, check out coasttocoastam.com. coasttocoastam.com. I'll be on Friday from midnight till 4 a.m. and Saturday midnight till 4 a.m. Central Time there as well. But this is fascinating to me. I love these ancient ties and the history of these stories. And our guest, Betsey Lewis, is with us this evening. Over the past 40 years, she's investigated angels, aliens, UFOs, cattle mutilations, and other Earth mysteries. She's here to show some light on this ancient serpent gods topic. And we welcome you to the show, Betsey. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's great to be on your show today.
What got you interested in this type of research?
Great question. I've always been fascinated with the paranormal. It's been the normal for me all my life. And I've had UFO encounters and spirit encounters. I've had, many things happen. I investigated cattle mutilations during the 60s, late 60s, 70s. So dinosaurs have always been a real big fascination for me. Even as a child, I had nightmares about them. And I started connecting all these dots of everything that, there was something missing about the whole story of aliens and reptilians and all these ancient civilizations that have actually worshipped serpent gods eons ago. So there had to be a connection.
Well, let's go back. You're very matter of fact. Oh yeah, I've had UFO encounters. You've had UFO encounters. Right. How? When did that start?
Well, what happened was it started when I was 8 months old, and my parents were on a real quiet road up in Idaho, northern Idaho. They were attending the University of Moscow in Idaho, and they decided to take a trip to southern Idaho, which was a trip usually that took about 8 hours. And I was only 8 months old. I was in a little basket in the back of the car. They hadn't seen a car for miles, which was really strange on this road. They usually saw a truck or something go by, but they hadn't seen anything. And out of nowhere, they hear this horrendous boom and roar, and it's shaking the entire car. And their only thought was that a plane was going to crash on them or near them. So my father pulls over to the side of the road. They jump out. There's nothing in the sky, absolutely nothing. And the sound stopped instantly, like it was just turned off. So that was the story they had always told me and what they remembered. And then my uncle threw in this really big mystery. He said that he remembered it so well because my grandparents thought that they were in a car accident, because my father always knew what time they would get in. And he said it reminded him of the Betty and Barney Hill case, where they lost a couple of hours. So he said that my parents lost 2 hours they couldn't account for. And that began everything.
Wow.
And
why?
Yeah.
Did your parents ever cop to that and and admit that happened, or was this all just secondary from your uncle?
Well, it was secondary from my uncle because they didn't remember that. They remembered the events leading up to it and the roar and the shaking of the car and, looking out and nothing there. So that's all they remembered about the incident.
And did that continue for you and your family, these UFO encounters?
Well, my next event was in southern Idaho when I was 7 years old. I was walking home from school. It was a cloudy day, and I felt something up in the sky. Something was watching me. And I looked up in the sky and saw this massive silver disc following me, and it seemed it would increase and decrease in size. And I was so frightened. I would run a little ways. I would hide in some bushes. I remember going in a totally different direction, which is really weird. And I found this house. I started pounding on the door. No one answered. The door was unlocked. Back then, people didn't lock their doors. And I went in, and I hid under someone's bed. That's at least what I remember. So it may have been a screen memory, but I did get home late. My mother was upset. We walked outside. We looked around. There was nothing in the sky. But children in the neighborhood reported that they had seen the same thing and were frightened. So I've had other things happen on a camping trip. Some strange things happen. I've seen some strange things up in the sky, but and some missing time also.
What do you attribute this to? I mean, do you believe that you're really being visited by extraterrestrial beings, or do you think that you're part of an experiment?
Well, maybe both. My mother and I were both regressed back to that event when I was just a child by Ann Druffel, MUFON investigator and author Ann Druffel back in the 80s in Los Angeles. And we both felt that there was something happened. I gave more of a detailed description of actually being beamed aboard, which sounds a little crazy, but we were actually pulled up through the roof of the car, and I described these gray beings and being experimented on. Now, like I said, I was 8 months old, so it may not even be true. I don't know, but they say that we remember everything even before birth, so maybe that's possible.
And your mother, what type of memories was she pulling out?
Well, she kept telling my father not to roll down the window. She was actually screaming under hypnosis. She kept saying, Fred, don't roll down that window. There's something out there. And he wasn't listening to her. He was kind of like in a trance. And she said there was this strange smell that she could smell. And she thought she saw something up in the sky, and Ann Druffel didn't go further into the questioning, so it kind of stopped there, and we didn't go any further. But she said that she had dreams, nightmares, of someone abducting me when they got home, when they finally ended up in southern Idaho with my grandparents and all. So she did have a lot of strange dreams.
Now, have any of you shown any telltale signs, the scoop marks, small things under the skin, any strange things showing up in x-rays?
No, I do have some strange hard something in my right hand, in the palm of my hand. I don't know. I haven't had it x-rayed. And it hasn't moved, so maybe not. I would, I'm
as a
kind
researcher,
of cynical sometimes.
Right, but as a researcher, isn't it interesting that out of all of this, you might have something and you're almost nonchalant about it and not looking into it? It almost feels like maybe that's a form of control.
Well, maybe so. I like to be more like a scientist sometimes. We always jump on the first thing that seems normal and maybe we want to explain it away as aliens, but maybe it wasn't. I've read so many things about aliens all through the years, and when I was regressed, that was during the 1980s, so maybe I was picking up a lot of these things that I've read. And
true.
So, right.
Fascinating,
sense, right?
though. You might have some physical evidence of an implant or something, but you're just no interest to investigate that, huh?
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
Sure.
Barbara Lamb wrote about this. I don't know if you've ever had her on your show, but she has written a book about people being, abducted and encounters. And she said that they all seem to have certain symptoms. Like my mother and I both had nosebleeds, horrible nosebleeds. And that's a sign that there was something implanted in the nose. Another thing is paralysis. I know when I was younger, I had that all the time, and so did my mother.
All right, so you've had these type of experiences. Do you recall ever seeing the beings themselves?
Under hypnosis, I did, and I described them as the large-headed grays, yes.
Are they scaly? Are they smooth, like a dolphin? How would you explain what one of these looks like to those of us that have not had an encounter?
Well, I describe them as gray, and their skin is more kind of rubbery and smooth.
All right, and then
kind of like Play-Doh.
Sure.
Maybe that's the best explanation or description of them.
And then the big bulbous eyes, do they blink?
I didn't describe that. I did do a sketch of what they look like. I felt that there was this aura around them, some kind of light or something around them. And I talked about tubes, that my mother was in some kind of tube, and she kept calling for me. I could see her, and I was on some kind of table, and my father was down below me. The deck was some kind of clear glass or some kind of surface that you could see through, and he was down below. And he was like in a trance. He wasn't moving.
All right, well, what do you think is the purpose? What are they doing with us?
Well, I think there's benevolent and malevolent type beings out there. There's supposed to be maybe over 11 types of species, maybe 18 species of beings out there, maybe some aliens, but I think there's also terrestrial beings that have been here for millions of years that live right underground, right under our feet.
Okay.
And I think they've been here for a long time, and that's where I get into my hypothesis of dinosaurs evolving, maybe one species evolving, and becoming what many have described as reptilian aliens.
When did this hypothesis begin for you?
Well, it's been in the works for a long time. I've always felt that there was something going on that just hasn't been explained. There's been so many documentaries and so many things on ancient aliens, and, it's aliens this, they did this and did that. And I thought, there has to be something with all these civilizations, ancient civilizations that actually worshipped serpent gods. The Hopi, there's the Egyptians, the Chinese had dragons. The Sumerians actually had it in Cambodia. There's different things that they have, serpents. So, who are these serpents? And I guess a lot of them were benevolent because they taught people many things, or they were worshipped. And, of course, the Hopi talk about the ant people that came up from the ground and helped them and saved them from what they called the first world and the second world. The first world was destroyed by fire, and then the second world was destroyed by ice. But these ant people saved them and brought them food and gave them shelter and told them how to survive these different events.
Well, if we worked so well with these beings, why would they then hide themselves?
Well, I think it's twofold. I don't think that all of them are benevolent. I think some of them went underground. There's evidence that dinosaurs, we always think of them as cold-blooded, right, and slow-moving, but paleontologists now believe that some of them were mammals, some of them were so intelligent, incredibly intelligent, and they were fast-moving. So if a species survived the extinction event 65 million years ago, I believe it was easy for them to go underground. They created this huge base, like in Dulce, New Mexico, which I'm sure you've heard about
right.
Phil Schneider and Thomas Costello, that both described what was going on with these reptilians and the Greys that work for them. And so that, there's just, like I said, there's just too many dots that seem to be connected and indicating that such a species could be there. And of course, I think our military there are people in our government that have been working with them for a long time. They've allowed them to experiment on people. Many of these people that have simply vanished off the face of the earth, I think, have been actually kidnapped and experimented on. So that's a little scary, isn't it?
Oh, that's a lot of scary.
It is a lot of scary, yeah. And John Lear, I'm sure you know who John Lear is.
Right, we've had John on.
He was on Coast to Coast and actually said that on November 2nd of 2003, he told Art Bell that he said that there are at least 18 species of aliens watching us. Some are good, some are bad, some are hostile, some are indifferent. Some of them are Greys, which are cybernetic organisms, and glorified robots. And he also said that they have been genetically engineering us for about 65 times. They keep changing us and working on us, and they call us containers, which is kind of interesting. But he also said that many aircraft have been down by UFO hostilities and thousands of soldiers killed, and including civilians who have been abducted without a trace.
Now, Betsy, many people believe that we're being genetically engineered and altered by alien races. And in most cases, people believe that it was to advance us, to make us bigger, better, stronger. Do you believe that maybe the opposite is taking place, that they're de-evolving us?
I do. I was just going to say, we are de-evolving, aren't we? They say that we have the reptilian brain. They call it the R complex or reptilian complex. And astronomer Carl Sagan wrote about it in his book called Dragons of Eden. And we have, it's called the R complex because we share this particular structure of the brain with reptilians, the aggressiveness. And what's interesting is, they say we evolved from apes, but I don't buy it. I mean, we may have a little bit of that going on, but apes have 24 chromosomes and humans have 23. They are so different, really, from us. They don't develop certain cancers like we do. Excuse me. And they appear to be immune to some infectious diseases that plague us. Humans have straight legs. They don't. We have an S-shaped curve. We have smaller teeth. They have big teeth and canine teeth. We have a chin. Apes don't. They don't know how to sing. They don't know how to cry. They don't know how to laugh. They don't express emotions like humans. So I believe that we probably have a little more alien reptilian DNA than anything.
Okay. Now talk to me about the tie-in with the ancient Serpent Gods and how this all comes to fruition.
Well, I believe that there are many different types of beings that were here, and I believe some of them are reptilians. I think they've been here for eons. Look how long reptilians, dinosaurs, actually evolved. We are told that maybe they evolved from 165 to 200 million years. That's a long time to evolve. And, some species didn't, other species did. But I think that there was a species, maybe like one of the paleontologists that talked about that, his name is Robert Baker, believed that there was a species called the Troodon, which was kind of a bird-like dinosaur that stood erect, had an opposable thumb, was incredibly intelligent. He said that if there wasn't the extinction event, this species would be the dominant species on Earth. So that's kind of interesting. And then I took it one step further, and I proposed that they did survive, and they went underground. They've been there. They've been doing all kinds of genetic experiments on us and on other animals. I think they helped create us, and I think it's still going on. I think our government's been working with them, and probably they are sharing some of their technology.
But what is the actual physical evidence we have that our DNA is being altered and changed? You would think that since, let's even call it 1947, the Roswell incident, if their alien intervention and interaction is going on, and that we are being taken and we're being genetically manipulated, we would be able to start tracing changes in anatomy. We would start seeing chemical reactions and changes.
Well, I think we are. And I don't know if you've heard about the ORH negative factor that a lot of the people have been abducted claim that they have, including children. But there's a lot of people, and I've actually interviewed some of these people that have this rare type of RH factor, negative factor, which is interesting because if a woman gets pregnant and she has the RH factor, she has a problem because the fetus will not develop properly. A lot of times they have to have a vaccine that helps them keep the baby. And actually, the mother's blood comes in contact with the blood of her fetus. It causes an RH negative mother to make antibodies against this baby. And so, I don't know if you've ever watched that YouTube interview with that Lisa from Canada who believes that she's part alien, and her mother had this incredible encounter with the Greys and also with human-type alien. But what's really interesting is that Lisa's mother is O negative. Lisa is O negative, and her daughter is O negative. So I think that might be something to look into. And I know that a couple that I interviewed, and I can't say their name, they've been on some big talk shows, they've been on TV interviewed, but they were abducted by 3 different types of aliens. And shortly after their encounter, the wife became pregnant, and they believed that their daughter was going to be an alien, part alien. And they admitted she does have that ORH negative blood, and nobody else in the family has that.
And science cannot attest for how this variation took place?
Could be, absolutely. Since I'm not a scientist, I'm just going by what I read. But, there's a lot of strange things. We know that there's a missing link.
Right, but what I asked was, has science tried to explain what causes that RH? Do they have any idea at this point?
No, they don't. No.
Okay.
Don't.
So it's just a genetic abnormality in a sense.
Yeah. Well, it can be inherited, but not always. If no other family member has it, which is interesting.
But
so that's what's going on with some of these abductions.
Right. But if they're having, so you've got a family now with this O negative,
right?
And what is the upside or downside of that? What does that prove to us? I mean, does this show that this is a more magnetized person? Is this somebody that's easier to control mentally? Somebody with, some kind of scientific principles that would back up that, this is a genetic abnormality that shows that we're being spliced as opposed to just evolution?
Good question. Great question. Many of these people show increased telepathy. They are say they remember things. They remember past lives. they just seem totally different. This girl, which I talked about, Lisa, she's French. She's from Canada. She's 6'3", stunning blonde, born in 1975. But she has said that she can communicate with people that don't speak her language, and which is really interesting.
Right, but there's a lot of claims that are out there. People are making claims every week that they can do outstanding and amazing things. But what do we have? What do we have to back up this fact that this person can communicate with people that don't speak her language, or that you had mentioned telepathy is on the rise? How do we know that? What type of experiments are being done with those people? Do we know?
Well, I don't know of any experiments, and I think it's about time that people start thinking outside the box and being so narrow-minded. It's get out of that tunnel vision, everybody, and start thinking outside the box. That not all aliens are from some far-off galaxy. That they're right here, and they've always been here. It's about time, don't you think?
Oh, I agree that if there is something, maybe it's already coexisting or is already here. I'm just curious because on a lot of broad-based statements, I think people want to believe, people want to open up to that possibility, but when claims are made that, it's proven that these people are communicating better telepathically, or this woman is making this claim, if we have no proof to back up those claims are taking place, it's hard for people to start opening their mind to the possibilities when we have no way to verify that.
Well, right. There's a lot of hoaxes out there. That's a given. I mean, all the time. YouTube is full of garbage. But, I think when there's so many people that come forward, and these are people that, have great jobs. They've been afraid. The two people that I spoke to that had their UFO experience, they did not come forward for years to talk about what happened to them. And they didn't want the publicity. They were afraid of losing their job. They're very religious people. So do we want to call them a liar? I don't think so. We have to believe somebody and maybe take them on their word,
We need to take a break. We'll come back as we continue to talk about ancient serpent gods, the alien connection to reptilian dinosaurs. Our guest this evening, Betsey Lewis, will dig a little deeper into that.
Beyond the darkness.
We're back. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis. Hey, remember, if you guys would like to join us, meet us out on the road at one of the amazing places we're going to be this year. You can find all the information at darknessevents.com. Darknessevents.com. You'll find information on the upcoming Chicago Paracon, the Michigan Paracon. You'll be able to find information about the August trip to London, England, and the countryside there when we go investigating haunted castles, crypts, and more. We've got all the information on ways to see us and meet us right there at darknessevents.com. And as we mentioned on yesterday's show, we're going to be going to Romania for 2018 and follow in the footsteps of Dracula. And if you'd like to join us, go ahead and email me at dave@darknessradio.com. Put it in the subject line, Dracula 2018, and I will make sure as soon as we have information and stuff to go up, we will let you know about that. So go check it out and email us right now. Darknessevents.com is the website. Dave@darknessradio.com if you want to be put on the mailing list for the Romania, Transylvania trip for next year. We're back. Betsey Lewis, our guest this evening. Ancient serpent gods, the alien connection to reptilian dinosaurs. What species of dinosaurs do you believe continue to evolve and hide themselves and become like a master race?
Well, I think there was maybe one species, probably one that, like I said, had an opposable thumb, one that stood erect, and probably one that already had a large brain and was very intelligent. Did you know that birds have more brain cells than apes? And they have tiny brains. They just have more brain cells. So, the size of the brain really doesn't matter. There's a lot of intelligent things out there. But, yeah.
Well, that gives the term bird brain a completely different context, doesn't it?
It does. It really does, yeah. And like I said, Robert Baker, who proposed that the Troodon, which was from, maybe more of a bird-type dinosaur, actually was one of those creatures that had the opposable thumb, and like humans, and had an incredible intelligence. And just think if they, actually evolved over 200 million years. Modern man has only been around, according to anthropologists, for 300,000 years, which I don't believe. I think we've been around much longer than that. But
could it be that these reptilians are nothing more than remnants of dinosaurs that have been genetically altered by aliens, by these ancient aliens?
Well, that could be, too. They could have overlords, too.
A breeding population.
Well, it could be. We know that the Anunnaki were supposed to have been reptilians, some say anyway. So maybe they came here at one time, and they were the ones that stayed here. They liked it. They went underground. So maybe it wasn't some species, which is kind of interesting because not too long ago, they heard me on Coast to Coast talking about this, and they sent me a YouTube video of an episode on Star Trek Voyager 23. It was about origins, and they had the same theory. They had an alien that looked very reptilian on in their sick bay, and they asked the computer what it was related to, and it said that it was related to us. It was a distant cousin of ours, which I thought was really interesting. I'd never seen this, and I went, whoa, somebody else was thinking outside the box.
The idea that these beings are around and that they've evolved or genetically been created with help from an alien species, and perhaps maybe these are the earlier experiments on Earth. That have been forced underground. That to me is a much more believable possibility that could be going on. But again,
sure.
Looking at this, if we're pretty easy to manipulate and we're pretty easy to control. So why all this game playing with them? If they need us to be there, if they want to overlord us, it's not going to take much. You come, you beam down, blow up the White House like they do in every horror sci-fi movie, and we will crumble. We're not going to rise like they do in the movies.
Right.
You do that once, and we've already seen it. Civilization can't get over a beating, a police beating. There's no way we're going to survive the annihilation of the White House by alien forces. We will bow our heads subserviently very quickly, I believe. There will be a small uprising which will be dealt with very efficiently from evil alien overlords. And I know I'm going to get some email from patriots around the world on that. But the fact is, we are an easy to lead group. Even if they just appeared to be benevolent and said, we can fix your cancer, we can fix it, people would take to it.
Right.
So why genetically manipulate us? Why come here and play God? Why not just get what they need from us and utilize us as the cattle we are? Yeah,
well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, I want to know that too. George Norrie asked me, he says, what would you ask them if you had a chance to? And I said, well, I'm not sure I'd want to if they do all these horrible experiments on us. But that would be one of the things that I would ask, certainly. And do they believe in God? Are they spiritually evolved? Because even if they're intelligent, doesn't mean they're spiritually evolved. And, I think we all came from the same source. Even aliens and reptilians and everything came from the same source we call God. And I think everything is spiritually evolving.
Do you believe that?
Or in our case, maybe devolving.
Right. And I think there is a case for devolving, and maybe it's going to be easier to control us once they've kind of broken the rise up spirit that was once a part of our people. Yes, Tim, you have a question?
Well, Betsy, I'm curious here. Do you think that some of this alien experimentation and some of this kidnapping of humans here on Earth has anything to do with much like what we would do zoologically with animals, and it's cataloging our DNA to document let's say humans are a devolved species of these aliens. Would it be like us cataloging Neanderthals or Cro-Magnons, or if we were able to get a hold of DNA from a devolved species, and we were able to come up with a live sample, wouldn't we be enthralled with it and want to have a live sample and experiment on it and see how it functioned? Wouldn't that be the same type of deal? Don't you think that's what they're doing?
Oh, absolutely. And look what we're doing to animals now, and the cloning and the experiments on monkeys that have been going on, the horrible things that we've done to animals. So, I think animals are sentient beings and have souls, and the way we treat them is just unconscionable.
So would you say we are more evolved or devolved from most alien species?
Well, I think we're still evolving. I think that many of these children coming in, they've been called the rainbow children, many of them, and not all children, are showing that they are more evolved. I believe that they are actually vibrating at a higher level. They remember past lives. They see spirits. They are telepathic. They have incredible talents in art and music. So I would say that's a step up. And I think there are, like I said, I think there are beings out there that really want to help us. And, I think there's been this spiritual war going on for eons, and maybe a fight over us. I don't know. There's so many questions, and I don't have all the answers. I wish I did.
What do you do with this book? What is the premise, and how do you walk people through it? What do you want them to get from this?
Well, I just want them to open their minds that there's possibilities of other things. There's so many mysteries on our planet. And I think that, we have to open our minds more to other possibilities. And instead of being stuck in our little ruts about, who these are, they're not just ancient aliens, or they're just aliens that came here from millions of miles away and wanted to stop here and, teach us all their wonderful technology. I find that a little hard to believe. Maybe so. Maybe they came through, wormholes or whatever. There's so many theories. Quantum physics. I believe time travel will someday be invented. So, I just want people to open up their minds and to think that, like in Star Wars, the cantina scene with all these different beings in there, these strange-looking creatures. I think there's many different type of creatures out there, and I think it's time we open up to it. I think someday, I think they're going to appear. I think we're going to see them.
Betsey Lewis, we wish you a lot of luck. The book, Ancient Serpent Gods, The Alien Connection to Reptilian Dinosaurs. Thank you for sharing that with us. Can I ask you, with your research real quickly, the research you did on cattle mutilations, what did you find from that? What kind of information were you able to glean from those, those investigations?
Well, I was doing some research with John Adams, who was well known for his research. And we found that there are some very bizarre things that have gone on, but there's also the unmarked helicopters that would always appear, military. And that's the really strange thing. A lot of these cattle mutilations took place within a few miles of a military base. But some of these stories, like in South America, are so bizarre that some of these cattle would be bawling and be lifted up into the sky, and there would be nothing there, and just keep going up in the sky and vanish. I mean, there's that bizarre of type, stories. So I think
was there any conclusive evidence we got from the cattle mutilations that were left here? Can we specifically say there are burn marks? We know that this was done with a pinpoint laser, or that we know that this was done this way or the other? Because I've heard varying aspects of that.
Well, I think there was a huge cover-up. I talked to a lot of veterinarians and branding inspectors and sheriffs that said they had never seen anything. He said that normal animals that would, actually, feed on these animals after their death wouldn't go near them. And even dogs would not go near them, that their hair would stand on end. That there was something very strange about it. A lot of times their blood was totally drained. An eye was taken, a tongue, the rectum was cored out. There were some really bizarre things.
All right. Well, we'll have a link up for the book, and you can find her at BetseyLewis.com. Thank you for joining us, Betsey.
Thank you so much.
All right. Tim.
Yes.
Here's the challenge. You do a show 5 days a week.
Yep.
You look for topics and people's theories and philosophies and hypotheses, and you want to open up and be open-minded. Mm-hmm. And that's what our guest was asking. Be open-minded.
Yep.
To the probabilities.
Mm-hmm.
I give some people this. Some authors are much better at conveying their message through written word than they are through spoken word.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I don't like to be disrespectful to my guests.
Right.
We've had a handful through the years that were just,
Yeah.
But it's infuriating in a sense when you talk to a guest like Betsey, who has a clear theory and an idea and belief, but when pressed, I can't get her to commit to why. It's just, you just have to believe. I can't. I need tangible evidence. That's the problem I find. And I've seen things fly in the sky. I've seen jets chase something that I could not identify flying in the sky over Pennsylvania. I've seen some weird things. I'm willing to believe the fact that the universe is too big and too vast for us to be the only habitable planet, that their spark of life only happened on one planet with all of the creation that's taken place throughout the universe. And you can have every scientific blunder and bubblehead come at me and tell me, no, it's ridiculous. But it's not ridiculous. There's no way to believe that it's not, that there isn't life teeming on other planets. Maybe at different levels than we are now. Will they look like us? Probably not. Maybe they do. Maybe when the cosmic bang happened, the same genetic spill came out all over the universe, so there will be variations of us.
Well, even in the most basic form of life, bacteria still enter our atmosphere from meteorites, from comets. So you can't say there's no other life out there, because even the most basic bacteria fall. Right,
but I think people will get over that. But I think it's the idea that there are walking, talking flesh bags like us that inhabit other planets. I buy that. I folks, we take flack. You guys get some shit guests. And there are times, we get guests that are not great. I'm still open to their ideas and theories, because I think that sometimes even clouded in there, you can find nuggets of information and bits of truth. And in some cases, it's more fascinating to hear why someone believes what they believe to me. It's equally as fascinating as if the event isn't happening, why do you believe it is?
Right.
So that's, we let our guest go early. I wish her all the luck in the world with the book. We've got George Norrie. We've got some other big names. Ann Druffel, best-selling author of How to Defend Yourself Against Alien Abduction, and the Tujana Canyon Contacts, who really stand by this book. Perhaps there's more to the book than there is to the interview. There was nothing about that interview I felt resonated. It's theories that I don't think are so unique. The idea that something may have continued to evolve and just gone underground, we've been hearing about that for years.
Right.
But what proof do we have? If they're that close and they're living underground, why are we not bumping into them more, crossing paths with them, especially with the amount of pollution and poisons we're pouring into the ground?
Even the most recent phenomena of fracking. You would think if anything would drive an alien from underground to be fracking.
Right. And if it's there, and I'm not saying it's not, if it's there, you would think they would be uprising to stop us from doing the damage we're doing, not picking Uncle Billy Joe off the back of a flatbed, right, to do some anal testing. They would be stopping the people running the machines. You know, end of day, they would just vanish. And those machines would be left dormant, and there'd be nobody there to run them to frack or poison the area. It just, to me, those are the leaps of logic that I see. And that's not me being a schmuck and saying, it's impossible for this stuff to happen. But that's where the logic of some of these theories and beliefs break down for me severely. We are littering our oceans with pollutants and poisons. If there are alien bases in them, maybe they have the ability to process the garbage and continue to live freely. And if they've gotten here from wherever planet or parallel universe they're from, maybe they have the technology to filter out the garbage that we're pouring into the oceans. But I would think if we're messing with their habitat, you build too much, bears come into your town, right?
Right.
You screw with the natural environment of creatures, they start coming into your area. Well, that could be said, well, that's why Bigfoot is being seen more. That's why aliens are being seen more. I think they're going to be more aggressive than just hovering in the sky or walking across a roadway. They're going to be angry that we're tainting and poisoning their water supplies, their food supplies. We're poisoning everything with chemicals that don't exist in nature, right?
Right.
So to me, it's really hard to buy into these. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Betsey. But was there anything she said tonight that she shared with us that you felt altered or changed your perceptions to open you to, yeah, there is that?
No, there was not one thing that she said that to me, I went, even when she was talking about the Rh negative, I felt like maybe there was a point there where she could have gone on a direction with the Rh negative blood where she could have maybe turned a corner that we've never seen before. But then she went on that same vein that everybody seems to go on with the Rh negative blood. And we didn't hear a different argument. In fact, we didn't hear an argument at all.
And there are just natural genetic anomalies that take place.
Yeah, there are.
There's giantism, there's dwarfism, there's webbing between the hands. Does that mean that we're alien species, or does it mean that there are just triggers that happen? And as the genetic coding is being turned on, somebody bumped their elbow against a trigger and set it off, right? Is Rh negative really a alien form? And again, if so, if all of this genetic engineering is taking place physically, we should be able to scientifically dissect something, a cell, a blood, bone, and find a genetic difference that says this is not human. Right?
One of the things when the two of you were talking about Rh negative blood, I started running through Google real quick, because one of the things I think that Betsey had brought up was, well, why do we even test for Rh negative blood or something? It was either you or Betsey had brought that up. And the main concern with Rh negative blood and why it's tested for in the first place has to do with pregnancy. And I believe that was brought up. But it has to do more with the safety of the baby during pregnancy. And there's nothing inherently dangerous about Rh negative blood. If you Google Rh negative blood, of course you're going to get the, I won't say, I'll say it,
the conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, you'll get the woo-woo websites that'll tell you, well, those people are more sensitive and this, that, and the other. And you'll also get the other websites that are more medically based that'll tell you, well, you know what? Rh negative blood is what it is. It's just a rarer blood type.
Right.
That, we all have genetic anomalies. This happens to be a genetic anomaly. It's rare. And we test for it so that we know, should this person ever be in an accident, should this person ever have a medical emergency, we need to figure out how we can fix them. And
now, there is a danger
to
to it, as I said. Pregnancy, I guess.
Right.
The mother, the host body, will fight off what it considers to be an infection, which is the child.
Yep.
So there's that genetic abnormality, but I believe there are other things that cause that as well, not just Rh negative blood, that there are other genetic abnormalities about. I think that's why some babies miscarry, is because the body is rejecting an abnormality perhaps with the baby, something that does not fit. You know, could it be said that those are alien implant babies and the body's rejecting it? I don't know. I just feel like at this time, it would be very easy to take these people that claim that they're half human, half alien, and do a very quick DNA study. Now, but science is going to be on the side of hiding it. So whoever takes the DNA test, of course, they're going to tell you it's human.
Now, keep this in mind, too. At the website I'm at right now, they're saying how common is the Rh negative factor. More than 85% of people have Rh positive blood, meaning that 15% have Rh negative blood. That seems like a high amount of aliens walking the planet, at least to me. Can you believe that 15% of the planet is an alien-human hybrid?
Well, sure.
Really?
Right, because 15% is a very small percentage of an overall populace. So if we were to believe, and again, that's saying, could I believe? Sure, I could believe. Because if we were to believe that there are aliens that walk amongst us and genetically manipulate and engineer, like I said, I think we would have, I think they know enough. Listen, we know how to take, and I'm sorry, I'm fracturing here as I'm trying to talk to him, but we've been able to take an egg and go in and flip genetic DNA to start reimagining dinosaurs by growing. And this is a real thing, folks. For those of you who think I'm talking woo-woo and crazy, they've actually been able to go in and flip the old genetic codes on in chickens, where the chickens start growing fangs and scales, which, again, this links us to believe that, the birds were once, the mighty raptors. These were the T-Rex. They've de-evolved, if you will, into delicious treats for us. And our vegan friends are going to hate that. But anyway, so here's the deal. If we, the subspecies, can figure out how to do that, I believe aliens would have flipped switches already so that we're supermen and women, or we're knuckle dragging monkeys again that are easy to control. And I think that if they're really doing these genetic tests, we should have some kind of physical proof. We should be able to see the abnormality as something far beyond what happens in nature, right? Because in some of these cases, our abnormalities are found in other animals in nature as well. Does that mean that the aliens were messing with chickens or messing with monkeys or messing with hippopotami, or cow? Could it just be that these are just hiccups in the system sometimes?
From a skeptical, realistic point of view, though, I have an easier time believing that 15% of the population could just have an Rh negative, factor to their blood just based on odds, rather than aliens or monkeys.
Right, but you asked me, could I believe? Yes, I could believe that a small percentage of our people may be the genetic manipulation of that, but then there should be other telltale signs besides Rh negative blood.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Right. Do their eyes, do they have those lenses that pop over their eyes, and then the skin lens comes down? You know what I mean? The eyelids. Are there other genetic abnormalities? Because, okay, good. You're Rh negative. What benefit is that to the alien race?
Well, and that's the point I'm getting at, is that Rh negative blood should not be your only factor to determine if you're an alien human hybrid. Because the fact that 15% of the population has an Rh negative blood factor should not be your only determination, because that means somehow 15% of the population is walking around as an alien human hybrid. And I find that that's a pretty high number. And that's the first argument a skeptic is going to throw out to you. Well, I doubt 15% of the population is part alien.
Well, again, that just comes into the idea of if we are being manipulated, sure, 15% seems like a very small version of the populace that we would see that in that might survive, right? Because if they're genetically engineering and playing God, there's going to be times that there are aborted versions of what they're messing with because it doesn't take, right? I mean, we go for, in medical jargon, when you go in for a transplant, you kind of have to take medicine and things for the rest of your life to make sure that your body doesn't reject the transplant that you received. So if these genetic engineering scientific experiments are taking place from an alien race, they would have, I just think they would have been in a place that it would be highly evolved. We'd know more by now. It would be plainly obvious. And many people I know are saying it is obvious. Then show me the proof. Rh negative. That's not proof.
No,
it's a blood type.
It's not.
Show me something that ties in with that. Okay. So let's all look at everybody that's Rh positive. What do we see with them? Can we tell that there is this genetic abnormality? There is this genetic supremacy point. Is there something besides the blood that we can say, yes, we've tested Rh negative. They do prove telekinetic powers. They do prove telepathic ability. We don't have that. And it's, people cite it and say, well, it's even our guest tonight. I tried to allude to that earlier. I don't know if you caught that, but I'm like, you mentioned that it's been proven. Proven where?
Yeah.
By who? What studies have been done? And there may be some fringe studies, but what was their theory or hypothesis going into it? And did all they do was prove to themselves that it exists?
Right.
Right? Is that why it's not been scientifically reviewed in a peer magazine? Or is it truly all governmental hush-hush?
Well, in order to prove it in a peer magazine, you have to, again, and we've stated it over and over and over again over the years on this program, you have to keep proving it over and over and over again in a laboratory, which will never happen. It won't happen. The resources won't come about. You won't have scientists that'll take it seriously enough to sit and do it over and over and over again. And I don't think there's any scientist in their right mind that'll say, you know what, we're going to prove today that alien human hybrids exist and it's all due to Rh negative blood. And it just isn't going to happen. So yeah, there is no peer reviewed scientific study that says that factor is the reason why there are alien human hybrids. So yeah, I thought that if that was the one road she was going to go down, that would have been different about the entire discussion. That might have been it. But otherwise, I didn't think that we were exploring any new ground.
No. And it's hard, because you get some great press releases from guests. And like you guests, we get our listeners, we get frustrated too by guests that really can't seem to answer the question. They dodge your question. But you don't know until you sit down and talk with them. And unfortunately, we're not in the situation when we're recording these episodes that we can say, all right, throw this one out. Otherwise, you just don't get a day without a show. Yeah. And we'll hear nonstop complaints about that. We'd rather give you a show like this where you can hear it for yourself, judge for yourself, try to make sense of it or not, and take it from there. I'm not convinced of a lot of the things that we talk about on the show, but I'm fascinated by the people that do believe it. I am fascinated by the ideas behind these things. I'm fascinated by the folklore that goes into these stories. It doesn't mean that I'm a skeptic on everything. I mean, I'm skeptical. I'm a skeptical believer. I've had my own experiences and I've seen things that I can't just explain away as, a bad dream or a one-off anomaly. It to me feels like there's something greater, but then there are other situations, other things that I thought I believed and understood before, which have fallen away for me.
I'll give you an example of where I gave Betsy the opportunity to take a theory and run, and she didn't. And that is when I asked her, are they cataloging humans much like a zoologist would catalog animals? Are they looking into their past like looking at us like we would look at a Neanderthal? Now, the idea being, if there is a link to us, to aliens, we'll run with it. Take that link and run with it. Create your own story. We don't care. Create it. Make the link. If that's what you're saying in your book, that somehow we're linked to aliens, we'll make the connection. Create new ground.
Right, but that would just be a hypothesis again, because it's not like she's been aboard and gone through their file cabinets to say, yes, they're cataloging us.
But again, a lot of the interview was speculation as well.
Well, most of the interviews are speculation.
Yeah.
People will claim because their belief in it is so strong that it is true. And they'll cite reports that we can't find. And they'll cite experiments that never existed. And they'll cite information that comes from a skeptical source, right?
Yeah,
not a skeptical source, but a questionable source, rather.
How are you going to follow it up?
Right. So that's the whole thing is, I believe that sometimes we need to shake out. And I don't mind challenging on this. I just felt like, taking her any deeper into the rabbit hole, we weren't going to get anywhere. Mm-hmm. Because I don't believe she really has, as she says, I don't have the answers. I don't think she had any answers. She had a speculative idea that was not new. And God love her for putting it in book form and selling a book and taking it out. And maybe there's deeper information. But I believe if you're going to come in stating claims and beliefs, you need to have some kind of backing for them. This place is haunted. Why? Because this occurred, that occurred. These experiences are concurrently taking place. Give me something to at least give you the aha. I'm even fascinated by places that have just been built that are haunted because, again, I'm open to the idea that maybe we're being haunted from the future and we may be experiencing things linear, but not in timeline fashion. Mm-hmm. So I'm open to those ideas and philosophies, and that fascinates me more than anything. But and with that, you can actually say, okay, there is some science and physics behind that they do believe this. And this is, Michio Kaku has talked about it. And, Dr. Kaku, Stephen Hawking, Einstein, a lot of them have theorized that these principles take place and are real. And you can give some examples of how that is. And it's not just me saying, well, yeah, there's been a lot of, no, there's not been a lot. And there's been very few that speculate on because when they do, they're made to look like idiots in the field of science until we have conclusive evidence and proof. But unfortunately, sometimes when you theorize outside the box, you get shot down so quickly, there's no time, effort, or money put into speculating and looking into the possibilities of that type of research.
Point taken.
It's a tough deal. But like I said, equally fascinating to me is why people believe the things they believe. And this is the Betty and Barney Hill case. Fascinating. Mm-hmm. There are so many aspects of that story that you just have to stand back and scratch your head and go, it's okay. I just don't know. I don't understand it. And even skeptics like Michael Shermer and Joe Nickel will say that. Sometimes you can just step back and go, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. There doesn't have to be an answer for everything.
True.
But why do we believe that this takes place? What was the experience that took place? It's really easy to pawn a lot of things off on mental health issues and say that this happened because this person was dealing with this mental health issue or this breakdown. But if there's no proof that was what was going on, also then the catalyst comes of, the catalytic idea of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Is this person dealing with a mental breakdown because they have mental instability, or are these experiences creating mental instability? Changing the chemical nature of the brain because they're being opened up by magnetic forces. Does that make sense?
It does. Do you have the one experience that puts you off kilter? I get it. I do get that. Does it make you doubt your existence and doubt what it is you're seeing? And does that take you off the beaten path, so to speak? I get what you're saying. And I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand with some people. I've seen the well-adjusted person who has a paranormal experience, and all of a sudden they're a different person. Now everything they see is paranormal. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at you because we're talking. I'm not looking at you and pointing the finger, because that's not the case at all. But I'm just saying I've seen certain friends of ours, people that we know that they've gone down that road. That they all of a sudden it went from skeptical, level-headed. I don't know that level-headed is a good term to use because you can be skeptical and not be level-headed. You could be skeptical and cynical and bordering on that cynical side. But skeptical and in the here and now, I'll put it that way. And then have that paranormal experience and be turned on your ear and then kind of going off the rails a little bit and starting to see things because you want to believe. Now that you've seen what you've seen and can't explain it, Now you want to recreate it. Now it's...
Yeah, I'm still baffled by the fact that, when we start looking at the advent of paranormal programming now 12, 14 years ago with shows like Most Haunted and Ghost Hunters when they first launched, and looking at orb phenomena and how it evolved into, okay, we now realize this is dust and moisture and bugs, but yet there are still so many people that you cannot convince them any other way, even though you can logically show them this is, and in some cases you can slow down film footage and see the insect, or you can see the moisture, or logic would tell you you're in an attic, you're in a basement, you're in an old abandoned building, you're outdoors in a field. These are places that are going to have bugs and moisture and dust. And that this is what people are moving about. That's what's kicking up all of this dust. And I've played that back and forth. Is it energy? Is there something there? I think the most fascinating theory I've ever heard regarding quote unquote orbs is the movement of these orbs. And they don't move. They move like there's an intelligence behind them. And there's no wind in that room. All right, well, if the spirit being is an electromagnetic force moving through that room, would it draw the dust particles, creating a swishing, swirling, intelligent? That, to me, is the most understandable and realistic view of the quote-unquote orb phenomena that I've ever heard.
But even simpler than that, have you ever used a duster that has a static electric charge to it? I mean, if you have, you know that dust particles are attracted to something with a static electric charge. If you're walking around and have any static electricity on your clothing, and let's say, and I'm going to throw a totally theoretical scenario at you here. Let's say I come to you and I say, Dave, I have this incredible video footage. I'm in this room, and it was my grandma's favorite room, and I was standing there and I said, Grandma, I just want you to come forward, and I'm going to sit in your favorite rocking chair. And I just want you to come sit with me in the rocking chair. And the minute I said that, this orb showed up, and I went and I sat in the rocking chair, and she came over to me and sat with me in the rocking chair. See the orb follow me over and sit with me in the rocking chair.
Right. And in those cases, again, that's the dust. But I was talking more along the lines of when they're videotaping an empty room and you start to see things. Oh yeah. The dust moving around on its own. Could it be a breeze?
Yeah.
You have to think about that.
Oh sure.
But I would be more understanding and believable of the fact that if there is an electromagnetic force moving about in that room, it may be pushing those dust particles around as if something was walking through there.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of cool and intriguing. We're open to dialogue, folks, and we want to hear from you. We're always interested in what you think. Unfortunately, there's some people that don't know how to convey thoughts in a polite way. They automatically go to rude and condescending. And you may disagree with the guests. You may disagree completely or think they're off their rocker. But again, it's in the idea of listening to why they believe. That's why I always push. Why do you feel this way? What brought you in here? I want to hear what that is. And I think that's an important element of the research is hearing this, because again, sometimes it's so fascinating to me why people believe that this is what's taking place. So listen with that in mind and enjoy the fact that the paranormal is what it is. Something we'll probably never firmly get a handle on.
Oh yeah.
Even though we may have extraordinary experiences and witness things that are beyond our reaches of reality and concepts of what we believe to be reality. The fact is, you need to remain open to the concepts, which is what she was saying. In essence, you need to be open to the concepts and look into it. But I also don't think you should follow blindly people that have no way to back up their theories. If you have a theory, why does this theory exist? Perfect example, Neil's story, right? I brought this up on yesterday's show when we were talking about vampires. I talked off air with our guest. I said, are you familiar with Neil's story? And he said, no. Who is he? Tell me about it. And I said, you've written all this information about vampires, and you mentioned that during the show that you believe that Dracula was kind of an amalgam of Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, and Lady Bathory, which many of us have believed for a long time, right? Neil's story, in doing the physical groundwork and researching and putting his hands on papers and reading diaries, is able to prove pretty conclusively his theory was that Dracula was not inspired by Vlad Tepes. The area, the time, the idea might have been a nugget, but that it was truly inspired by Jack the Ripper and the Jack the Ripper murders. This man in a cloak vanishing into the dark, into the mists and the fog-filled streets of London, butchering people and in kind of this frightening way, right? Mm-hmm. So he does this research, and at the end of it finds that there is a smoking gun. His hypothesis is it's not Vlad Tepes. It's not Lady Bathory. That it's Jack the Ripper. And in the end, he comes to the conclusion because he finds the document that says that it's the Jack the Ripper murders that inspired this book. Right? Mm-hmm. That, to me, that's the way you walk through a philosophy. You make a hypothesis, you investigate the hypothesis, and if no matter how much you want that hypothesis to be real, this is science. You have to look at the evidence that comes up with it. And at the end of the day, if the evidence says Bram Stoker in his own writing said this was inspired by the Jack the Ripper murders, it takes away the idea that this is Vlad Tepes or Lady Bathory. You can conclusively say, without a doubt, that was not the main inspiration for this character. Right?
Right.
So when you're going to say that there are these ancient serpent gods, which she didn't even touch on as I kept trying to flesh her out with it.
Yeah.
And there's a connection to these reptilian dinosaurs. She had a lot of conjecture and a lot of hypothesis, but she couldn't point us to any trail to walk it down to say, I can see where logically this makes sense. Why at the end of your journey, you're at this point. Mm-hmm. This is like the beginning. This is the beginning of a business. I've had an idea. I think we could sell widgets. And I think people would want widgets. And I see other things like widgets that people believe in. So I think widgets would be a good way to go. And then just expecting that's a business. That's not a business. That's a thought. That's the creative force behind the business, right? Mm-hmm. Then there's the effect of putting it in. Can we create the widget? Can we build the widget? Can we market the widget? Can we sell the widget? Then there's something to follow. And in this case, I feel like this was definitely just more of, this is what I believe, and I can't really back up why I believe this, but I think there's something to this story.
Well, to add to your point a little bit and to kind of turn it a little bit on Betsey just for a moment, you had brought something up that she had said, and that we all just need to be a little bit more open-minded. But I want to build on that for a second. The people that listen to this program on a day-to-day basis are already open-minded, because if they weren't, they wouldn't listen on a day-to-day basis. They would have formed their opinions already on the paranormal. They would stop downloading the program, and they'd say, I know everything. I already have my opinions formed. I'm walking away. I pretty much have my idea of what happens, and I don't need to explore anymore. So the people who are listening from day to day are open to the ideas that are presented on a day-to-day basis. They have a fascination, and they enjoy the topics, and they want to hear. So Betsey already has an audience here. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the audience that's failing Betsey. It's Betsey who failed the audience, because as you just pointed out, there was no connection to any serpent gods when we were talking to her. She didn't walk us down.
It might be in the book, like I said.
It might be in the book, right? But in order to stimulate our senses and our interests and get us down a different path and give us a different perspective on this topic, which how many times in the last 12 years have we probably gone over it?
Different versions, right?
Right, different versions. In order to give us a fresh perspective and get us into that book and get us wanting to order the book, you want to put a fresh spin on it.
And let me give you a little bit of perspective too, folks, because I get a lot of animosity online. Well, Schrader doesn't even read the books. If you'd read the book, you'd have knew it. Here's the fact. A lot of times authors and guests are only available to us at the last minute. We throw out hundreds of invitations on a monthly basis, and we take them as we get them. If it's a fascinating topic and it's something we want to cover, we bring it in. And then a lot of times there's no time to read a book on the subject. We get our press release, we get the information they send us, we try to walk them logically through the timeline that they've given us. Some can't follow that lead. Some are extremely adept at doing it. So it's not as simple as, well, you guys need to read more. I've read everything we have on this guest, and we've read what is available to us 2 days after it was booked. And now we are going on the precipice, or on the, not precipice, but on the premise that this guest knows their topic.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And there are a lot of times when that's not the case, or they're not adept at verbally or orally sharing the concepts that they've come up with. That's why I would say pick up the book and read it for yourself, or don't. But sometimes it's easier, and if you're rolling your eyes about it, think about it. How much easier is it for you to write an "I'm sorry" than it is to look somebody in the eyes and say it? Sometimes it's easier to put pen to paper and convey a full message than it is in the heat of the moment, your mind working in 100 different directions, and somebody's knocking at the door, and news just popped up about a bombing in France or something. So your mind, your personality is being split into 14 ways. When you're writing, it's a concise form, and then you have an editor that looked at it and can follow the timeline. That's why I say read the books and see if you get more out of it. We do our best with the interviews, and we appreciate that a lot of you understand that and respect that is what we're doing. We're giving you the best interview we can give you with these guests. And in some cases, it's really fun, and it's a lot of great information. Other cases, it's pulling teeth to get to not much. But, we do find that in some of those cases, like I said, I still learned from Betsey today, and I found it fascinating to hear why she thought these things and what were her experiences. Mm-hmm. So you never know what you're going to get out of the interview itself. So all we can do is thank you guys for coming along on the ride with us. We hope we at least make it enjoyable and thought provoking, and that you see that we don't just walk down every avenue blindly. We question. And in some cases, we don't always push, because out of respect, I realize that this could go horribly wrong for the guest on the phone, and some will yield and realize that they're in over their head, and we politely end the interview, right? Mm-hmm. Some not so much, but you do what you can do, and we'll continue to explore these topics. And we love you guys. We respect that you follow us along, and that you go down these dark corridors and rabbit holes with us. And we hope that you at least get a break from life and whatever it is you're dealing with, so that your mind is opened to concepts and thoughts and new beliefs. And maybe there's somebody listening to this show right now who has the wherewithal to pull the strings together and look at a hypothesis like this and say, yes, I can see where this is. Here's why. And maybe we'll have them on as a guest 2 years from now when they've written their book. Yeah. So you never know where inspiration comes from. That's it for tonight's show. Tomorrow, Priscilla Vogelbacher will be our guest. Lucifer, Origins and Revelations. It is some of the most crucial theological disclosure of the past 2,000 years. Through years of scholarly research, Priscilla unveils the origins of religious mythology and validates Lucifer as a creator and a savior and a god of his own. It's going to be controversial, thought-provoking. We'll take a look at that tomorrow. Priscilla Vogelbacher will be our guest. Friday, Scott Marlowe is here as we talk about cryptids in Florida, adding to the long list of terrifying reasons not to go to Florida, Tim. Remember, last night was the brand new True Crime Tuesday. You can subscribe right now. Go sign up for it. And you can hear a snippet of that show at the end of last night's show on Beyond the Darkness. But go sign up right now at darknessradio.com. Click on the True Crime Tuesday banner to subscribe for $5 a month. Gives you 4 brand new 90 to 120-minute episodes. Plus, we'll have some other benefits and bonuses popping up along the way as well. That's it for tonight. Love one another. Be kind. And remember to check out darknessevents.com for all the cool ways to meet up with Tim and I throughout the year. We'll be back again tomorrow here on Beyond the Darkness.